Hello, everyone. My name is Luke Gilmore, and today we'll be discussing the case of Gary and Holly Ramona. The year is 1988, Gary is 44, and Holly is an 18-year-old senior. At this point in Holly's life, she is struggling with depression and eating disorders, while Gary is a top executive at one of the leading American wineries. Stephanie Ramona, wife and mother, begins to notice changes in her daughter and becomes very concerned. Stephanie wants Holly to attend psychotherapy, but Gary is hesitant to the idea and insists change in scenery is all his daughter needs. Unfortunately, the change in scenery of moving to college did not help Holly, and her condition only worsened. She became anorexic and bulimic, alternating between having a very strict diet to binge eating and vomiting. It was at this point, just before her second year of college at UC Irvine, that she opened up to her mother. It was also at this point that Holly began seeing a counselor named Marsh Isabella at Irvine Family Psychological Service, which was an off campus private practice. Isabella is a newly licensed marriage and family counselor and had little experience dealing with eating disorders. Stephanie asked Isabella where her daughter's eating disorders could have come from, and Isabella stated that 70 to 80% of bulimic women have been sexually abused. This causes Stephanie to confront Holly and ask if anyone has ever sexually abused her. Holly responds with she is not sure, but she thinks she might have been, but replied it wasn't her father who had done so. Treatment continued and was quite uneventful until December, after a full semester of treatment and college. Holly was home from college and reported to Isabella that her father had looked at her in a sexual way and later responded to having flashbacks of her father sexually abusing her. As time passed, the flashback continues and soon became more vivid and vivid. The flashbacks included fondling, vaginal, oral, and anal intercourse. The most horrific and vivid flashback was of bestiality, in which her father was having sex with the family dog while she was forced to perform oral sex on the dog. At first, Holly told no one of this, and her condition only continued to worsen. But finally, Holly tells Isabella about her father's sexual look. It was at this time that Isabella labeled the sexual look as emotional incest. Following this, Holly begins to see Isabella 3 to 4 times a week, where she describes the flashbacks in detail. Isabella wants Holly to confront Gary about his actions, but Holly does not want to do so until she is certain that they are memories and not false allegations. To do so, Holly wanted to be administered a truth serum that one of her fellow support group members had been given. Isabella resisted the idea at first, but finally gave in and contacted Dr. Richard Rose, who was a psychiatrist. Holly was admitted into Western Medical Center on March 12th. At this time, Dr. Rose conducted a 45-minute interview in which he determined Holly was a good candidate for the sodium amytal interview. 2 days later, the drug was administered, and Holly was asked to recall the events she previously discussed with Isabella. For victims of sexual abuse, many therapists think that confronting your perpetrator or even litigation itself can be helpful with recovery. One of the legal hurdles that Holly was forced to face was the statute of limitations on cases like this. But, after consulting with her attorney, Holly learned that just 3 years prior, California legislation had become one of the many states that enacted laws liberalizing the statute of limitations on cases of sexual abuse, especially for sexual abuse on minors. At this point in time, Holly decided to sue her father for the psychological harm from the abuse that he committed. By doing this, it placed her medical condition as the issue and not the abuse. But, in order to win monetary damages, Holly would have to prove that the abuse occurred and that it affected her mental state. But, by filing for this lawsuit, it allowed Gary to be able to defend himself because he now had access to Holly's medical records. This also allowed Gary to pursue claims against Isabella Rose in the hospital where the interview was conducted. His lawsuit against those 3 individuals totaled $8.5 million. Unfortunately, by conducting the sodium amytal interview on Holly, Holly can no longer sue her father and was stripped of her day in court. This is due to the fact that the courts find sodium amytal interviews scientifically unreliable. Although Holly could not sue her father was still able to sue others. With this being such a high-stakes case, the witness list of the trial was solely comprised of experts in the fields of sexual abuse, eating disorders, and repressed memories. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury ruled in favor of Gary Romano. They made this ruling based on 3 questions posed by the judge. The jury concluded that Isabella and Rose were negligent in providing health care to Holly Ramona by implanting or reinforcing false memory of her father's abuse. The jury also concluded that Holly's therapist caused Holly to confront her father about these false memories. And lastly, they found that Romano suffered damages due to Holly's therapist's negligence. In the end, Gary Romano was awarded no emotional damages and only economical damages, which totaled $500,000. 40% of the responsibility was placed on Isabella, 10% on Rose, 5% on the hospital, and 5% on Romano himself. The question of whether and what to extent repressed and recovered memories exist still remains up in the air and unsolved. And it still remains a great controversy between clinicians and behavioral scientists to this day. What this case did was make many therapists cautious of newly uncovered memories of abuse. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.